Major support for these programs is provided by Bank of America Merrill Lynch and Perfect Building Maintenance, New York Community Bank, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, GREENBERG TRAURIG, LLP, M&T Bank, Chase Commercial Term Lending. Additional support is provided by AVR Realty Company, LLC, Bingham McCutcheon, LLP, Briarwood Organization, Bruce MOSLER, Capital One Bank, Cassidy Turley, C.B. Richard Ellis, Chelsea Lighting, CUSHMAN and Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development, DDG Partners, Hal FETNER, DURST FETNER Residential, Friedman LLP, Accountants and Advisors, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, LLC, Genova Burns and Gian Tomasi, Investors Bank, James D. CUHN Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, Corman Communities, Madison Realty Capital, Margolin Weiner and Evans, LLP, Certified Public Accountants and Business Advisors, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, NEWMARK Knight Frank, Site Comply, Sterling and Sterling, SJP Properties, Stonehenge Partners, the WITKOFF Group, Urban American, and Ackman Ziff Real Estate, Ariel Property Advisors, Eastern Consolidated, Essex Capital Partners, Goldman Properties, Moynihan Group, Muss Development, RAL Development Services, the SPRANDREL Group, LLC, Rosewood Realty Group, Triangle Equities.
So they call it the Hamptons, they call it Suffolk County. There's lots of things happening in that marketplace. So I've brought today these individuals who knows what's really happening in Suffolk County and the Hamptons. My guests today include Mark Hamer, who is the principal at Timber Ridge Homes, Kevin Santacroce, who is the Executive Vice President and Chief Lending Officer at Bridgehampton National Bank, Lawrence Citarelli, who is the principal at Lawrence 3 Corporation. And last but not least, Mitchell Reckler, who is the CEO and principal at Reckler Equities. So I have 3 developers and I have 1 banker. Now, you're here because you're supposed to give these guys some money eventually. So you have to tell me you're really lending. And see, we always like to mix it up.
Right.
So are you giving money out in Long Island?
Absolutely. We are lending, and we have a number of projects that we were involved in the East End development and also refinancing of existing mortgages. So, and we are optimistic about the market as well. We think that certain communities are underserved on the development side. But we've done some spot residential lending and then some more larger projects of development, specifically in the Riverhead town area.
I mean, I think everyone here knows the Riverhead market. It's an unusual market because when I was with Apollo, we wanted to do something. It's a great town, but the town, nothing really happened. The Woolworth, the other situation, they opened up that new restaurant.
Sweezy's.
You know, but
well, there's been some examples would include right downtown in Riverhead on one plaza. There was the in consortium with the county. There's a 58-unit affordable housing going up with 4 or 5 rental spaces on the bottom. So we've been involved with that project. That just broke ground.
Is that right on the corner?
Right on Peconic Plaza, correct. Right across from the park. It abuts to the park on the river. And that coincides also as another nice bookend to what's happening in Riverhead with the new Hyatt that was recently built. Which is adjacent to the aquarium.
Which I think is important because we were talking about before, certain banks and certain people have this perception that people don't go out to the Hamptons in that market for hotels. And the hotels in that market, especially in Riverhead, you know, on 58 near Tangers and everything, have done really well. I mean, one time they had that whatever that was, which they've changed. They call it an indigo now, but the market has really changed over there. And then, you know, Tanger's, that's great. They have buses going out there, and I think there's a Lowe's going.
Well, you
on
have Splish Splash, which is a major draw. I think it's one of the largest draws on Long Island in terms of visitors per year. And then the aquarium is actually the second in terms of actual number of visitors. So those are two big draws to that community.
And I think there's a big need for hotels.
Right.
Our problem is in zoning. Right?
Now,
Absolutely, and just those are the only real hotels that exist that are remotely close to the East End.
Correct.
So just in and of itself,
Correct.
they get filled.
you know, it's very interesting you bring it up. We were talking about before Quag and some houses, and I mentioned that, you know, Steve Pizicki, you know, a major New Jersey developer and also 11 Times Square, his daughter just got engaged, and he has this magnificent home, and he wanted to have a wedding for his daughter on the property. I mean, there's more than enough room. And his problem on their perception, and it is a problem, is there are not that many hotels nearby.
There isn't.
In reality, there's only the hotel in Riverhead, and you know, you have these small little bed and baths in West Hampton and some other places, but they really can't do it. And so when you have these weddings or bar mitzvahs or events out there, and you know, that relates a little bit to Canoe Place, you know, the need for catering facilities and other facilities. So why don't we talk about that, Canoe?
Well, there's really two things. I mean, we have the project at Canoe Place
which is in Hampton Bays.
Which is in Hampton Bays, and at this point, we're going through the approval process. After a lot of bumps in the road, we think we're on track where it'll be a 28-room inn, and it'll be really nice, and it'll have a restaurant as well as a catering space. But in addition to that, in West Hampton, in front of Gabreski Airport, we have the Hampton Business District.
Which I think is really a testament to you and your family's business. I mean, because you are one of the largest owners of industrial and office space over there. But you know, that airport, I mean, I've had an apartment in West Hampton 17 years. You know, that airport's great, but I'm not joining the Army Reserve anymore.
No, but
okay,
I think,
you know, in addition, my ability isn't that great for the Army, but you have that great space. And,
Well,
you know,
it's first of all, relative to hotels, we're approved to do a 145-room hotel. So this will now bring a real hotel to the East End, where, as we were saying, nothing exists, you know, out, you know, except for in Riverhead. So we're very, very excited about that. And then in addition, we have 460,000 square feet.
Let's talk about that. The type of space, is it going to be one level, two?
It will all be single level. It's a mixture at this point of 7 buildings, 4 office buildings, and 3 what I would call industrial buildings, but the flexibility and the parameters of what we could do in those industrial buildings are very broad, where it could be lab or showroom space.
And they're great tax abatements for the tenants.
And then fantastic tax abatements. I mean, 50% 485B, as well as, depending on the industry that you're in, could be 100%.
You get movie
And I think that-
production, theaters.
I think the timing is right
Movie
too
production,
in West
props,
Hampton,
so-
because I think that there's been a shift and more people are living there year round. And I think that that's going to dovetail very nicely with the offering office, industrial, some flex space, and helping to build a year-round commerce and trade.
I think something, you know, with regard to that, it's really great, the train from Hunters Point to West Hampton, which goes only on Thursdays and Fridays, it's a one-stop. Unfortunately, after September, it doesn't continue. And I believe if they continued the trains to West Hampton and further out on a more regular basis, you might have more people commuting into the city than before.
And I think that space that you're building there will also serve for a lot of the contractors that do a lot of work out east, but have offices further up the island
That's
too.
correct.
That's absolutely
Because if you look at the trade parade, you'll see the signs of the trucks that go past, and a lot of them are localed very much
further
west.
Absolutely.
And so I think that there would be an opportunity for them, if they wanted to have an out east shop, but not have to deal with some of the trafficking issues, and enable them to go to both forks too.
Now here, you know, here's a subject that's always come out on my show with regard to zoning, getting approvals, and also zoning because of the, you know, school budgets and everything else, so the 55 and over. What do you see happening in the Suffolk County? We're not talking about Nassau. What do we see in the West Hampton, the East Hampton, the Montauk, or anything like that with regard to residential? Because residential, as you just said prior to the show, there's so few increases in residential, and there's such a need for it. And then we'll talk about
here's
your
a perfect example. I'm doing a 23-acre, last of its kind. I mean, and it's small, relatively speaking, to some of the other projects that are out there, but it's the largest subdivision in Remsenburg, which is adjacent to West Hampton, in the last 40 years. So when we're going through, I mean, we see a demand for the secondary and somewhat mixed of a primary use, but as it relates to school budgets and things of that nature and zoning, we're in the middle of doing the typical planning and going before the board and trying to make them understand the matrix.
Yeah,
We have to mix use and how it affects both. When planning, we have to look at both micro and macroeconomics, and how does it affect school boards and the pressures on it.
It's certainly a concern. I mean, and you've seen over the last 5-6 years a lot of the towns really focusing on the 55 and older developments, with the theory being that then you're not adding to the school systems, but. I think that it's as developers, we need to educate the communities and these boards that these developments aren't really taxing the school system as dramatically as people think, and we need to expand the tax base in order to continue to have a reasonable property taxes and not see those skyrocket. And I just think more importantly, we need to be listening to the communities and trying to put together smart, well thought out developments that the communities need, and not focus so much on just 55 and older. I think we need we need all housing. We need condos, we need townhouses, we need 55 and older, and we need to have the proper mix and the variety of housing in order to appeal and attract people to come.
I agree 100%, and I also believe that many people who are over 55 really do not only want to be isolated with 55 and over. They want younger people in the community, and it's important. I know that in different parts of the country, especially in Florida. But another situation, and I had the Coglins on from TriTech when I did a show a couple of months ago. I think they're doing something in Melville, and you're talking about your project. What are you doing with this 500-unit development?
Oh, that's in Amityville. We just got zoning right at the end of the year for, and it'll be something that'll be done in 5 phases, but a 500-unit rental. It'll have a 20% workforce housing component.
You know what? It's important for my viewers to understand what workforce housing. Would you explain it?
Well, Long Island, as an owner of 6 million square feet of commercial properties, and having been in this business myself for 30 years and my family for over 50 years, anyone doing business on Long Island in any form knows that there is an endemic problem that the young people of Long Island have nowhere to live once they graduate college. And what ends up happening is they either go to a different state or go to Manhattan, and maybe they'll return if they go into the city, but generally speaking, we're losing our youth. And we need communities for the young people to affordably live.
So if you're going to have 20% workforce housing, how do you build this? I know in New York City and other places, we have an affordable, so there's a tax abatement situation allowing you to be able to build at a lower point.
But there's a distinct difference between what one calls workforce and one calls affordable. Workforce housing is more for your fireman, school teacher, youth who can't necessarily afford the Hamptons pricing, but wants to stay here, wants to raise their family here, wants to bring their children up in the place where I was fortunate enough to be brought up. And I'm one of those guys. I left, went to college, went to Wall Street, commuted for 7 years from the Hamptons to the city every day, and then
and look what happened to your hair.
And look at me, I lost my hair, right? But the point is that if you talk to the councilman in Southampton Town, and you talk to planning, and you talk to land use management, there's numbers of 20,000, 30,000 units needed just in Southampton Town
But I,
And I know that we're probably moving in the wrong direction here, but the workforce housing and affordable housing, the easiest way to solve it is to streamline an approval process, allow developers to add some more density in the right locations, whether that be around transit hubs, whether that be around villages, and then offer a variety of different housing choices. There are lots of reasons why a 22-year-old doesn't want to live on Long Island, of which Mitchell brought up the biggest one, which is affordability. But it's not just affordability.
no, but Mark, I think you're right on the point, because you know what? There are certain cute little towns in different parts of the Hamptons. We were just bringing up Riverhead before. We're talking about other towns, and I remember I had Mike Puntello on the show. He's talking about what's happening in Glen Cove. It took them 20 years with their own property. I mean, you take the towns, there's characteristics around there, and it's nice to be there, you know. And you can have restaurants, you can have a mixed community. And unfortunately, because of some of the people, you know, who are provincial or, you know, adverse to development, I mean.
I think it's
But, well, and the successful communities on Long Island, whether it be West Hampton Beach Village, whether it be Southampton, whether it be Huntington, the ones that people gravitate to are the ones that are destination oriented. People want to be there on Thursday, Friday, Saturday night to eat dinner, to see a show, because people like to be around other people. The last thing people want to do is walk into a restaurant and be the only one there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they could do that at home at their kitchen table. Okay, so I think one of the things that, again, it's an education process that you got to put people through. But I think you have to start trying to educate people that density can bring a lot of positive attributes and desirable attributes, and we need to start to make sure as an island that we're evolving like the rest of the country is.
Correct, and still be cognizant to the environment, to open space, to certain tools that are available.
We all
to
live
us.
there. We all live on Long Island. We're all residents. We have more than a business, interest invested.
A real vested interest in.
That's
I
right.
think a good
humanity.
example is Patchogue and what Paul has done there as the mayor, and if you've seen
Why don't you
some
tell
of
me
the,
about
well, he's done a lot of encouraging development and business and bringing housing back to the village. And his idea is that if they live there, they're gonna want to eat there. They want to have shows. The theater
And it's actually
and it has happened.
And it has been happening.
So, and that's a good example of where I think on the East End, though, the preservation of the lifestyle and the people that support that very rustic or farm is very strong. So, and it's a very challenging in East Hampton, Southampton.
But even Hampton Bays.
On the north, it's very strong. And there's very
living the
deep
dream.
roots to
I'm
keep that type of,
I mean,
right or wrong, but that's what you face.
Well, and
But
it's
if you-
right.
if-
It's right
if you-
because if you lost that style of living, right,
Right.
it wouldn't be the Hamptons.
Correct.
And what I mean by that is, there is a significant trade, obviously, from the beaches, from that resort / leisure / vacationing aspect, and so I do think as developers we have to be cognizant that you can't kill the golden goose.
Absolutely.
And you made
you'll
a very
see
good-
in
I'm
certain spots. We just closed on a loan in Southampton, and it was the conversion of an old sand pit, and it's a 78-unit townhouse facility. Now that went through approval. Yes, the developer it was grinding and gnashing of teeth, but it got through a little bit
So
quicker.
how big are the units and how much is this?
They're about probably anywhere from 2,100 to 2,500.
Are these going to be, as Lawrence was saying?
These are market.
Okay, they're market.
They'll
Are
be
they going to be year round, or are they going to be?
I
you
think
see
you'll
there'll be more
You'll
seasonal
see a
people.
mix. I think you'll see a mix. You'll see the second. You'll see the second homeowner wanting to have a place to stay, but you'll also see a large part of the community want to move in there and sell their
But
existing.
now we had that community near 58 that I remember Charlie CUSHMAN built one development. A couple of other guys built a development. Near the hospital, near in Riverhead. Right. There were a number of homes near the golf course. There's a number.
That's Highlands at the Reeves.
The Highlands.
Yes, correct.
Now, but
Yeah.
those were really a lot. You had people from Manhattan living
Absolutely.
there, but I'd say 60% of these people live there all year round. and some would be commuting.
Probably that's a fair assessment, yeah. Because that was two developments. One was off of Northville Turnpike and Sound Avenue. The other was off of Reeve Avenue by Cherry Creek.
Yeah.
And those were successful. They're wrapping both of those projects up. Now, they've been in it for about 7 to 8 years.
Right, but in reality, let's look at
but those
Timber
are
Ridge wasn't
single-family-
in it,
Right.
but the West Hampton Pines must be 7 or 8 years right now, isn't it?
I'd say this is the 6th year of selling in that community. We will sell it out this year. We only have 19 units left, and that's been wildly successful for us.
How many units?
I think that one
in
thing,
that
and you
development?
probably talk about it better than we can, but our experience, the Hamptons have come back. I mean, clearly, obviously, when the market took a downturn in 2007, and certainly, I think the crash was in that fourth quarter and first quarter of 2008. You saw, really no liquidity in the market. No one was really selling. No one was really buying. But over the last couple of years, you have seen a steady improvement. The deal flow is back. The pricing is solidified and probably even crept up a little bit. So, we feel very comfortable. Matter of fact, we're starting a new development in West Hampton Beach Village here, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months.
Now here's the question. West Hampton Beach, since I reside there, and some of the Hampton Bays, which has some difficulties getting zoning, they did build the shopping over there. They put the shop, over there, Stop and Shop, and then that other one with the King Cullen. So they've had some, but part of the biggest problem, and I know this happens in West Hampton, and I would assume if it's happening in West Hampton, it's happening other places, they're not letting you build some retail. Is that true? I mean, do you see retail happening?
There is a big fight against it by the civic groups out there.
Why?
I think they're afraid of traffic.
But, if what Mark is saying, let's understand, if people are living at a place and they have to have certain amenities, you need some retail to go along with those amenities. I mean, in the town of West Hampton, you have this former A&P that they've owned the property next door for years, and they can't extend the supermarket because of some
Correct.
crazy
And
situation.
Andrew Mendelson is trying to put up a new supermarket, but they don't want to take it away from the downtown business. I think you made an excellent point before, and I think the key, human nature is always adverse to change. Computer, who doesn't know how to use it, you scream change, you scream development, typically that's looked upon as adverse, primarily from a lack of education. So what do we do as developers? We go out before application, we reach out to all the civic associations, all the community, have countless meetings, listen to their concerns, and then we try to balance. It doesn't have to be a bad
If we're
word.
talking what Kevin was saying about Patchogue, let's go to the other state, New Jersey. What has happened, like in Princeton, you have a great university, and in the town they built townhouses and retail around the town. They did that in Morristown. Morristown used to have had a great department store, it had a Macy's. Roseland has changed the proximity of Morristown because of the train. So you could do that in West Hampton. You can make the village larger. You could do that in Hampton Bays, which has a character, but nothing happens. I mean, I had a friend out there who lived right in Hampton Bays. I couldn't believe the beach and the water and looking at the sound. There are great situations over there, but you have to have politicians or community leaders who want to do something.
The most important thing, you hit the nail on the head, is political will to understand that growth, like you're suggesting, will only make the area stronger, instead of this provincial fear that if another store gets built down the road, it's going to hurt the 2 or 3 stores that exist. And that's all it's really going to do, is draw more people into the village and exponentially increase business.
And call me an optimist, it's happening.
I agree.
I mean, I really feel like there are sharper politicians today than there were 5 and 8 years ago. And sharper, what I mean by that is, I think they have a better understanding, a more complete understanding of where Long Island is and the issues that confront it in its growth. So I'm optimistic. We have been able to sit down with the various political leaders in towns and at the county level, and really lay out why we think something needs to start moving this direction. And then you've got, you know, foundations like the Roush Foundation, who for the last, what, 6 years, Mitchell?
At least.
You know, have been publishing the Long Island Index, where they are profiling and measuring from year to year the statistical data on progress, whatever you want, however you want to define that. And I think that there's a little bit better communication and collaboration among the various constituencies, whether that be the environmental constituency, whether it be developers, whether it be the political class, of trying to really, you know, come up with measured improvements.
I hear this, now I have to go to the banks. What we were saying prior to the show is maybe Bridgehampton National is doing that business, but a lot of the other banks are really not out there trying to help. I mean, you're getting money from M&T, but it's really the Westchester, you know, it's the White Plains division. M&T's interested and they're doing some work, but...
And our acquisitions have been all cash.
Okay, Capital One is quiet, TD is conservative. You know, there are many banks. Bank of America is not interested in, to do this, you know, so... You know, we can have all this development, we can have all this happening, but if we don't have the capital to do it, we're not going to be able to do that
and
either.
remember, when you come out of that, the economic period we did, the regulation kind of, the pendulum you know, swings the other way. And so the scrutiny that banks were under, particularly if there was any evidence of faulty, bad loans, then there was the assumption that it was a faulty process. So the last few exams that we've gone through from the OCC have been increasingly intense. Now, we have a great relationship with the regulators. We came out without any problems, and we have grown. But remember, we're up to $1.3 billion now, but we started out 4 years ago, we were $600 million. So we are
rather
there's a limit
major
to our growth just because of capital, and we have just recently
You
raised
just
capital.
did some capital. Sandler O'Neill did some.
We raised $24 million. So we're trying to fill that gap. But it's not, we are unable to absorb all of it.
I mean, we could talk about Chase, and you know, they're a supporter, but they're not getting money out.
But Long Island does need a Long Island-based bank, I feel, that is, you know, at that $3 to $5 billion, that could handle a lot of these projects and understands the island as well.
And in defense of...
You have just put the key. Understand that market. Okay, you can't have the guy from Manhattan or somebody, you know, from Texas. No offense, you know, the Capital One guys who are originally.
No, but in defense of the financial institutions, clearly we have seen an easing. We have seen deals better structured today.
In the last
We've seen some real opportunities to establish both commercial and residential lending standards.
You know, you can't talk about Suffolk County, and I'm really happy how much we spoke about the Hamptons today in 30 minutes. And I will definitely invite all of you back in a couple of months so we can continue this conversation. We can see the renderings of what's happening in your property and your other projects. And I just hope that the politicians, the community leaders allow you. I'd like to thank Mark Hamer, Kevin Santaroshi, Lawrence Citarella, and Mitchell Reckler, and I'll see you next week.